Yo, yo, yo. Welcome back to the Beardworks Podcast, episode 12. Got a bit of a superhero heavy episode this week. We rave on about Marvel so much, but this week it's showing a bit of love to DC. Scads, how you going?
Good, man. How are you today?
Oh, just daily grind of uni and shit.
Yeah, today's been a pretty big day for one superhero in particular, hasn't it? So, and we've both been reading a comic. Well, I read it a while ago, so I've done a bit of refresher on it. So, one of the best storylines for one of the world's favorite superheroes and the most universally known superhero, Batman. So, Nick, what have we been reading recently?
We've been hitting up when Batman got kind of kicked off again in the New 52, the Court of Owls, Volume 1.
Yep. So, just for our listeners, the New 52 was a new line of comics that came out, sort of rebooted the universe. And so pretty much every comic that was created in the New 52 was based 5 years from when they first became a superhero. So where we pick up for the Court of Owls, it's Batman 5 years into his reign as Batman. So, Nick, what were your first impressions of reading, the first few issues of Court of Owls?
Well, I've been a Marvel and Image reader like my whole life, but going into DC, I've never really dipped my toes into it, and it is wild. I don't know why I've taken so long. I won't be buying Marvel for a while now. I reckon I'm gonna go through this whole run of Batman. It went from 2011 to 2016, I believe, this particular series.
Yeah, Batman, like I was saying before, is a universally known superhero, and not as Captain. I'm not sure. I wouldn't really say Captain America. Probably Iron Man's the most universally known, Marvel character. Actually, Spider-Man. You'd say Spider-Man would be, wouldn't you?
Probably, yeah.
Obviously, Batman is that key figure, and I was saying this before in the pre-show that you have Star Wars, you think Darth Vader, and I think when you think DC Comics, or DC in general, you definitely think Batman. Because he's just a normal man, obviously, with a fair bit of money behind him, but is a great detective, and that's what makes him so interesting compared to all the other superpowered heroes in the DC universe.
Well, yeah, it's the perfect origin story. Like, your parents are dead, got nothing to lose, you want to take back your city. It's just, everyone knows Batman. Everyone likes Batman. It's just, I'm just don't know why I've taken so long to dip my toes into DC, because it's got such a more brutal vibe. I was talking to one of my lecturers, and he used to be a comic artist for DC and Marvel. Like, he did a lot of Black Lightning, and he did some Batmans in the 90s. And he was saying, like, in industry, people used to say, you read Marvel when you're a teenager, and when you're an adult, you switch to DC. It's more of like aimed more at the older crowd, and you can definitely tell that by reading it.
Yes, very dark vibe, and that's really funny. It's like, Deadpool in his movies always pays out the DC universe.
Yeah.
So it's like, so yeah. Anyways, the story of the Court of Owls from the New 52 is a great little run and a little story to start off the Batman's comic run again. The Court of Owls is based around sort of like an Illuminati kind of group of higher powered people. Not saying like strength wise, but money wise. And so it's sort of like they try to build up this world that Batman knows Gotham like the back of his hand. Like, Gotham is his city, and he defends it day in, day out. Obviously, most of the time at night time, but he knows it like the back of his hand, like I was saying. So when it comes to this story, it's sort of like bringing out saying that maybe he doesn't know Gotham as well as he does, because there's this other force that has a higher power than him that controls the entire city that he thought he knew. So it's a really cool aspect of Batman is the world's greatest detective. He's always knows where to go next and knows what to do. He's always got a plan. When they throw this into the mix, he sort of second guessed himself for a little while. So it's a really cool little story to show that Batman is still human, but he is also, you find out throughout the story that he's connected to these things in a lot of other ways as well.
Yeah, it's like a secret society been just right under his nose, and it's like you can really see it getting to him. Like, he thought he knew Gotham from the rooftops to the sewers, but like they had this whole secret society and organization pulling the strings his whole life, and he just didn't even realize.
Yeah, and overall, the story is quite rich in certain characters. Like Lincoln March, like him is running for new mayor, and it sort of shows that he knows that, like you say, this is what people talk about. Is, when you think about Batman, you don't really think about his alter ego is Bruce Wayne. It's not so much Bruce Wayne's alter ego as Batman, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Because
Bruce Wayne is Batman's mask.
yeah, exactly. Because he fronts up the people that see Bruce Wayne the most is when he's wearing the mask. Obviously, they don't know it's Batman, but the Bruce Wayne character, he's just there as a billionaire, sits in his mansion. He doesn't see too much. He doesn't do too much. So he's always it's sort of like the opposite, to some other superheroes. But Batman as a character is just so rich, and his history goes for so long. So it's so cool to see that maybe he does second guess himself a little bit, like you're saying with the Court of Owls, and it's just really cool to see. I'm trying to get to the point where him as Bruce Wayne, he's trying to do his bits and pieces with the money that he has, and Lincoln March, who's running for mayor, is trying to say, "Yep, I know where to put the money," all that kind of stuff. So it's like a duo sort of running things, sort of like when you watch Batman: The Dark Knight with Harvey Dent. You know, it's like him,
Yep.
Batman, and Jim Gordon working together to bring people to justice through the corrective measures in Gotham. Whereas in this comic book series, it's more like these two characters are trying to save Gotham. So Batman at night, Bruce Wayne during the day, by funding the right places of the city to help the kids or the people that are in need of it. So I like that little aspect of this Bruce Wayne's a bit more involved as well. So
Yeah, and they're having that meeting in the old Wayne Tower, and then the big Talon dude just kicks through the window and just bitches both of them.
yeah, the Talon is a really cool character because for people that haven't read the comic, and you should definitely go read it. The Talon character is like an assassin that works for the Court of Owls, and there's a really cool mystery behind it that the Talon there's heaps of Talons, but at any one time, that mainly most of the time there's only one, but they have access to many, and it's basically people that were in their prime that are kept alive for a little bit longer through it's like a stasis kind of period, like being frozen, and then they're brought back to when they're needed. So it's an interesting little take on prolonging life, I guess.
Yeah, the Court of Owls will groom child prodigies and child athletes, and implant this thing in their tooth that leaches this. I don't know. It's like a chemical alloy into their system, and that is they're prepping their whole life without even knowing it. So when they're at peak physical condition as an adult, they can be put in these coffins and be turned into Talons. And it's really interesting. It's I don't know. It's a better villain than just Batman punching up a bunch of goons, just random street thugs. It's
I remember watching this video on YouTube, and it was talking about the Court of Owls comic run, and they said that as soon as that comic came out, the first Comic Con straight after, there was so many people cosplaying as a Talon. They said it was so unreal watching people walk around with all these masks on. But yeah, the Talon character is interesting, and obviously there's a little fight scene the first time, obviously, and it's as Bruce Wayne, not as the Batman. So it's cool how his thought process is pretend you don't really know what you're doing, that you get a few lucky hits in, so then people don't get suspicious of Bruce Wayne beating up on this assassin. So
yeah, he's holding himself back, but then he ends up getting kicked out of a 50-story window, and he's got to get out of that then.
Yeah, maneuver himself, which was really cool because it showed that, like he said, he knows Gotham like the back of his hand. So when he's falling, he knows that there's a gargoyle sitting just a bit below. So he knows that if he can grab onto that by maneuvering around in midair, fighting this Talon character, that he could survive. And obviously it shows that he flies down and gets, lands on top of a car. That's Talon, obviously. While that's a really cool shot, that little panel where it shows Bruce Wayne standing over the top of him on a gargoyle like he would be as Batman, but this time as Bruce Wayne with all the needles through his body.
And that's the first glimpse you get at the Talons that they're not properly human. They're a bit immortal because the Talon falls out of a 50-story building straight into a car, and then a couple pages later he's just straight back up in the morgue ready to kick off again.
Yeah. Now, overall, the overall story of the Court of Owls is really interesting. Obviously, you have not read the second part, so the City of Owls, which explains a little bit more. But in a way, I think they could expand on it more. But I know that's not sort of really happens. I forget the writer for this comic, but he did a really good job, obviously.
Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, and Jonathan Galpion.
Yeah,
I think.
But anyways, Scott Snyder, he was really good. I watched so many videos just talking about the Court of Owls run and how well it was written, and they were saying that he doesn't give answers for everything. He leaves a lot of it open as well. So that's obviously happens at the end of City of Owls, which you'll find out. So overall, it is such a great little run, and that little comic, I think, shot Batman off again, like for the New 52. So people were so keen to keep reading, and obviously following those two was the Death in the Family, which is like the Return of the Joker, and that really hit hard as well. So that the start of Batman in the New 52 was amazing. So I mean, Nick, compared to your Marvel ones, you obviously, like you said, you're going to be keen to read a few more DCs now.
Well, yeah, went to my local comic shop, got volume 1 and 2. So Court of Owls, City of Owls. Finished Court of Owls today. Going to start City of Owls tomorrow. And then I'll probably end up getting Death of the Family or Death in the Family, which is volume 3. So yeah, definitely on a bit of a DC binge right now. And so is the rest of the world. Speaking of Court of Owls, let's switch over now, which is pretty well the same thing. Gotham Knights.
Yeah, gameplay trailer was released today, as of like today's date, which is the 23rd of August. At what was it called? DC
FanDome or something.
FanDome,
FanFest, yeah, something like that.
But yeah, so obviously we are talking about Arkham Knights. So
Gotham Knight is Arkham. Or
it's so Gotham Knights. Yeah. Sorry, not Arkham Knights. I keep thinking of the other game. So this game is based in an alternate sort of like timeline compared to the last Arkham trilogy. So obviously you have Arkham Asylum, which is the very first Batman game in like the new console era. So 360 that was on, and then you had Arkham City, which was also on 360, which was a follow up to the Arkham Asylum, and then you had Arkham Knight, which was the third in the run. But in between 2 and Arkham Knight, so Arkham City and Arkham Knight, you had Arkham Origins, which was created by a different company. So it was still inside the continuum of that Batman Arkham series, but it was made by a different developer.
Yep.
And that's the same developer that's creating this new game. So what they've actually come out and said that this Batman has got the same characters from those games, but at the end of Arkham Knight, the incidents that happen at the end there, it takes a different route, and this is where that story takes over. So it's not necessarily a sequel to Arkham Knight, but an alternate reality or alternate version of what could have happened. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for it because I think the Arkham combat and the Arkham games have been spectacular.
Oh, the formula works. We've both played them all, and we were both super keen as soon as we saw these videos because it just looks like they're staying true to at least the mechanics.
And I think it's still refreshing enough to be good. And not saying Arkham Knight, like I was saying, I spoke to you off air that Arkham Knight wasn't my favorite of the Arkham games. I reckon Arkham City was still my favorite.
Yep.
But in saying that, it's still a great trilogy. And so bringing in this kind of concept where you sort of play as, you got co-op obviously, which would be interesting to see how that works. I mean, we've obviously seen the gameplay, but to see how it works in the long term of the game, but to see that you don't actually play as Batman. So that's a new concept that it's not completely new. Obviously in the past games you've had to play as, Red Robin or Catwoman or something like that. But this one's, they're all designed differently, if you understand what I mean. Like they've all got their own leveling system and stuff like that.
Yeah, I hope there's a bit of choice. Like you can choose to like focus more on Robin or focus more on Red Hood or whatever. But I feel like it's going to be split into 4 sections. Like you're gonna have to play 4 chapters, and each is going to be each of those characters, and that's going to make up the story.
Yeah.
And it starts off with that cutscene of Batman, like the news announcement that Batman's dead, and then his message. But then they reveal later on in the trailer that Court of Owls is involved. So you've been telling me, because you've obviously read more into DC and that what I have. But yeah, Batman's probably not dead. He's probably faked his own death, or the Court of Owls are controlling him.
Yeah, and like I was saying before we recorded this, is that now that this Gotham Knights looks really interesting. So they could have literally, obviously, and they've said it's an alternate timeline, so they could have literally just killed Batman off and have Gotham descend into madness, and so then everyone has to suit back up and come back to Gotham. So obviously, Tim Drake.
Yep,
that's the Tim Drake Robin as well, which is Tim Drake's like apparently the prodigy detective after Batman. So it's really cool to see him back into it. And then obviously you got Batwoman, and you got Nightwing coming back, which is obviously Dick Grayson's just a fan favorite, so everyone loves to see him come back. And then you got Red Hood, which is kind of cool because at the end of Arkham Knight, you find out that Red Hood is still around. And that's the interesting part, is that if you have played Arkham Knight, at the very end that the Arkham Knight is actually Jason Todd, who normally plays the Red Hood character, and that he's got a scar on his face that has like the J. So obviously from when he was what happened with him and the Joker.
But he doesn't have that scar in this new trailer.
No, it's just like a normal scar.
Maybe he's cut that scar out and like stitched his face back together to get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It could be he could have had plastic surgery for all I know, but he's obviously still got a scar there, and he's got that little grey, like little grey hair at the top as well, which is from like another comic as well. So it's a little bit of a shout out to a different version.
That's from Hush, isn't it?
I believe so. I haven't read too much of that side of the story, but I know I have seen some panels of him having that little grey spot there, dressed up in the Hush outfit. So, I mean, that's still kind of cool. But yeah, I sort of wish, like I was saying before, like the Court of Owls could have been used in a Batman, like the Batman trilogy, like follow up game, because if this is the way we see it, is that Batman's either alive. They faked his death, and that he's using the faking his death part to sort of like investigate the Court of Owls, but in the real dark shadows, why everything else is going crazy because they think he's dead, or they've captured him, faked his death, and they're going to use him as a talent, which they might use him as like a semi-final boss. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's such a coincidence because like, we have been hearing rumors of this Batman game coming out, but then we read Court of Owls, and then it turns out it's going to be in the game. It's just, I had to giggle to myself. Just, it was strange, it lined up like that.
It just, so I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I like the idea of playing. You got the 4 characters you can play as. You can play co-op, and you have the drop in, drop out, which I think is really cool. And I'm hoping the progression works over both games, like over both player profiles, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, I sort of wish they could have saved, because at this stage they could have killed off Batman, and they could have just had this as Gotham descending into madness, and had the 4 players come back, and because we've seen what happens, in Arkham City, the video game, that the city that's been torn off and left for Arkham to like control, when that descends into chaos, like everyone's broken free, which is really cool, and it shows Batman doing it on his own, sort of thing. So we know how full on all those enemies could be. So to have the 4 characters of like the family come back and fight, that'd be really cool. And they could have just left Batman and saying he was actually dead, because it actually hasn't got Batman in the actual title, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I don't know. I just hope it'll be good. I'm hopeful it's good.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure the combat and the game, it looks beautiful, like, and it's going to be on next gen as well, so it's going to look great. So I'm all down for that. But yeah, I want to see how, obviously, I want to see how the story plays out, and see what you're saying. You might have to play every character to progress the story, or maybe you can play the whole story as one character, depending on what happens. So that'll be really interesting. And obviously they talked about the leveling system and stuff like that. So, you're versing as you level up, and your enemies level up as well. So it's not like just a walk in a park. And also that each character, like each villain, has a story arc where you, like, I think they said that the gameplay they showed that you play as Batwoman is like halfway through the Dr. Freeze storyline or something like that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they said like 12 hours into her progression. So yeah. But it was interesting how they were saying example, fighting Mr. Freeze at level 5 will be a completely different experience to fighting Mr. Freeze at level 15. Like the enemies scale with you, and they get different move sets, different abilities. So I think it's really cool. That means everyone's playthrough is going to be super different, because, say, for instance, I verse Mr. Freeze at the start, and you go off and verse, I don't know, Bane. You might have a different Bane fight than I will. It'd be really good to watch different people's playthroughs just to see what the possibilities actually are.
Yeah, I mean, when they say stuff like that, I think that the way I think about it is that maybe that the enemies just don't have a stagger, like on a higher level. So like they don't stagger very often. Whereas like if you realize from level 5, they stagger a bit more, or you can counter them a bit easier. That's the way I look at it. I can't see them having a completely different moveset. I know they did say that, but
yeah,
I don't know. You don't always have to trust what developers say.
Well, speaking of what developers say, and in reality, we've got kind of flip on the spectrum. The Avengers beta was just out.
Oh, yes. Let's so obviously previously we spoke about how keen we were about how keen we were about the Avengers game, and the gameplay looks pretty cool, and obviously the beta stuff that they've shown off, well, not the beta, but that first mission they've showed off a few times now where you play as Thor, play through the 5 main heroes. It looked interesting, it looked fun, but we were more into the war table kind of stuff.
Yep.
Like the Warzone things that they showed off, that was more interesting to us. And obviously, you don't get to do too much of that in the beta, which what we played. But your first impressions, what were your thoughts on the combat and that?
Well, you were in an Xbox party with me, and I booted it up just before you. And every 5 minutes, I was saying that something was shit. The graphics looked like a 360 game. The flying as Iron Man's clunky. It's like a VR game without VR. Like, you've made a shit Avengers game when Black Widow is the best character.
Yeah, it's a real shame because you spoke about you wanted to use Thor as your character when we played it.
Yeah, I wanted to main Thor.
And Thor's character felt okay, but when you're a god knocking thugs around, it feels strange. I mean, I know they can't just have
Feels wrong,
people bursting into red mist or limbs getting ripped off and stuff like that. But yeah, you literally throw a hammer against one of them and he gets hit up against a tank and he just or a car or a truck and he just bounces and he's stuck there against Mjolnir, but still, it's not the same.
The game just doesn't feel good to play. Like, a good example that I drew playing like the, hour and a half I played of the beta. In God of War, when you throw the axe and call it back, there's some like haptic feedback. You actually your hammer feels like paper mache, man. There's nothing behind it. It's just this little weak toy you've got.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I wasn't into it.
I don't know. And even playing as Iron Man, the flying part, and then actually the flying part was okay. That was just generic stuff. But then the actual combat with Iron Man, it felt so stagnant, if you know what I mean. Like, it's hard to explain. Like, you're just floating in the air and you're shooting off you. It just doesn't feel fluid, I guess you could say.
I never thought I'd be saying this, but like in Anthem, they just missed, like, Anthem is better than the Avengers game for flying combat. Like, that's ridiculous. I never thought I'd say that.
Yeah. And then obviously you play through as all the characters. Captain America's combat's not too bad. Throwing the shield around a bit. It's like a brawler as well. Then you play as the Hulk, or you play as Hulk first. I can't remember, but the Hulk, he's very slow, which I can understand. He's a bigger mass and stuff like that, but I just didn't find it very fun. I found like all of his stuff was scripted, sort of thing.
Oh yeah, even the jumping parts, like, there's only ever one path you can take as the Hulk.
Yeah,
there's no freedom.
But the one thing, like I said, you spoke about at the very start, is that when you play as Black Widow, she feels the most fluid and fluent, I should say, and enjoyable to play. And that's true. I found that she was the easiest to play with and she was the funnest because she was so nimble and stuff like that.
The game is boring. That's just the simplest thing I can say. Oh yeah, I'm not very keen on this Avengers game after this trailer. What am I saying? I'm not very keen anymore after playing this beta. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to get the game anymore.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. I don't know how I exactly feel about it. It's definitely a disappointment. And then we look at Marvel's Spider-Man. Like, that's such a good game. I think it's obviously, as Spider-Man, you are nimble. You do the flips, you do the kicks, and swing around in the web. It's fun and it's an open world game. Obviously, this is sort of bringing it all back together. But they could have. When I was playing Spider-Man, I thought I'd love to play an open world Iron Man game. But now, and so they could have done something like similar to what they did with the movies, where you have like a few standalone games. But I can understand they want to jump on the Avengers hype while it's still around. Obviously, the main cast are pretty much not all gone, but they're very dwindled down in the movies now. So obviously they just want to get that nostalgia back, but it's just not there. This just doesn't feel nice. It doesn't feel like when you buy Spider-Man, you play Spider-Man, the Marvel Spider-Man game that came out in 2018. That was a really nice and polished game. This, I know, is only a beta, but the combat and all that kind of stuff, it does worry me a fair bit.
But it's a beta, but it comes out very soon. This is not going to change much, if any.
Was it say initial release date?
It's September 4th, I think, or 6th.
Yeah. I don't know why it says initial release date was 14th of August. Did they push it back?
Yep, they did.
But I don't know. I really don't know. And it's such a shame. Our radars are just completely off at the moment. We said that Ghost of Tsushima would look like rubbish, and then we played that, and it's one of the best games we've ever played. Said the Avengers looks decent, and we played the beta, and that's rubbish. Jeez, we're back to front.
Yeah, I didn't think I was going to be saying it this quick, but I reckon that it's DC's time to reign.
Yeah, people were saying that in the comments, and that's one thing that we can move on to now, is that, and I know we've just gone from Batman to Avengers, now we're going back to Batman again, is that they just released a trailer for the Batman movie that's coming out in 2021 with Robert Pattinson, and that looks absolutely sick.
Yeah, I was never the biggest fan of Robert Pattinson. Like, I've seen a few of his movies and all right, but I saw Tenet yesterday. That's amazing. He's sick in that. And now this Batman trailer, he looks unreal. He looks like they've took the Batman out of the comic and put it in a movie. He looks wicked.
That's the thing. Robert Pattinson has now, obviously, everyone knows him from Twilight and thinking, okay, Twilight's not that great. But the thing is, not all the actors, but the main actors in Twilight
are all good actors.
There are decent actors, and because they got that money from Twilight, they made shitloads of money, like as actors from those movies. They can actually now pick and choose what they want to do. And so Robert Pattinson's done a bunch of indie films and smaller films that people didn't even know about, and he's great. He's a great actor. So when they announced him as like that he'll be the next Batman. Everyone's like, oh, what? Robert Pattinson, the guy from Twilight? But if you actually look at his movies he's done since then, like he's a great actor and he's perfect for the role.
He looks like a beast in the new Batman.
Yeah, like it looks a bit awkward, when he's playing as Bruce Wayne. You see the haircut, like he looks a bit different. But Bruce Wayne isn't perfect. He watched his parents die. He's gone through a lot of trauma and stuff in his life, and he wears a bat suit. He's not all there.
And I saw a video, like a breakdown of the trailer. The Batman movie is set 2 years after he's become Batman. So this is early in his career. He wouldn't have even tackled that many big baddies yet.
Well, I know that for a fact that in this film, they've talked about the enemies or the villains he'll be facing. And so this is the rise of Penguin, the Riddler, and obviously Catwoman. She's always dancing on both sides of this fence. So
yeah,
it'll be really keen to see. And like it shows, like you see, his suit is very basic.
It's definitely he's just made it.
Like his boots are just like R.M. Williams
combat boots, yeah.
But yeah, and his suit is very interesting, and like the helmet is like solid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he looks absolutely awesome, and the tone, it reminds me a bit of the Gotham TV show, even though I haven't watched all of it because I can't really get into it for some reason. It just doesn't.
Yeah, I really liked the first 2 seasons, and I never went back afterwards. I just lost interest.
Yeah, but the tone really feels like that kind of world. And yeah, it's just really interesting because we've had so much, and this is such a shame that's recently happened. With obviously they're talking about the Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League, which it's not going to save the film.
No,
it's not a great movie, unfortunately, and
it's 4 hours long, and it's like a few years old now. The Snyder Cut had its opportunity years ago to come out.
Yeah, obviously it'd be interesting. A lot of people are keen on it. There's little bits and pieces. They've reshot a few things as well, so I'll be keen to see what the difference is and see if it's actually worth,
going back.
But they can't save it because I know they just spoke about who's the actor that played Batman? Ben Affleck coming back as playing Batman again in the Flash movie.
Yep.
The thing is, I wasn't a big fan of Ezra Miller's Flash. I think he recently got in trouble for something. I don't know what he did, but I was wondering if they were going to cancel his Flash, contract, I guess you could call it.
No, I really liked Ben Affleck, but I didn't like Ezra Miller. He's just a bit of I know he's trying too hard to be funny.
Yep. But I don't know. Anyways, I like I said, I like the Ben Affleck Batman. He's a decent Batman. Nothing like Christian Bale though. Obviously, they're different worlds. Christian Bale's Batman is more like grounded and more realistic compared to the acrobatic Batman that we see in the Justice League film and the Batman vs Superman. But if you just think about it overall, the Justice League universe they've created, it was just so rushed, and they just wanted to try and keep up with Marvel when they should have just taken their time.
Just based on snapshot, quick fire reactions, Robert Pattinson's going to be better than Ben Affleck. Robert Pattinson may be the best Batman we'll ever see, so far.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm hoping that he's, I just want to see what the combat's like and, he's the kind of Batman he's going to be. Because it's either really grounded or the acrobatic one. Oh, there could be meat something in the middle. I'm just hoping there's a bit more detective work as well.
Oh, yeah, we were saying that earlier about Batman comics. The best comics are the ones where it's him getting nitty-gritty with the detective stuff.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that's what we see in this Batman, in the Batman film, is that Robert Pattinson's Batman is more like a detective that does combat stuff as well. But yeah, I'm just a bit worried because there's so much going on at the moment in the DC world. Obviously, you got the new Wonder Woman movie coming out, which I think the first Wonder Woman movie was really good, and the second one looks pretty decent as well. Then you've had Aquaman come out as well, which was pretty decent. But is that based before or after the Justice League movie? Because
I think it's after.
Because that's the thing, he's got different. If you look at the Justice League film, his armor is a bit different. He's got general, just Atlantean armor.
Yeah, because he becomes Ocean Master in Aquaman, but he's not Ocean Master in Justice League, so Justice League must be before Aquaman.
And this is what I mean. They screwed it up. I don't understand what they were doing. I know that Avengers and the Marvel series scene was kicking off, and they just wanted to try and keep up. But Man of Steel, I think, was a good film.
Man of Steel is the best DC one of that era, I reckon.
Yeah, and that was really good. And then they brought out Batman vs Superman. I don't know why they called it that.
Yes,
they could have just, because it's called Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice. So they could have just called it Dawn of Justice, or they just could have called it something else. But I wasn't a big fan of Batman vs Superman. I think they rushed Doomsday. That really frustrated me. He was a massive enemy. But this is what happens when you have like your two main head of like heroes go off at each other, and then you need to create a villain that they can face together.
Yeah, they were just trying to get their big bad out just to compete with Thanos. They rushed it. Thanos was set up over so many movies, and then Doomsday, they've just wasted. They could have had like a big build up like they did Thanos for him.
And then in Justice League, they have Steppenwolf, who I didn't even know who it was.
Yeah.
I heard about him, but...
And they've got Darkseid now. Like, are they just going to waste the next biggest DC villain? Like,
well, I think the Darkseid part is going to be like either like a flash forward thing that the nightmare thing that Batman saw. I can't remember. I think that was in the Batman vs Superman, but
one of them.
Yeah, I just don't know. I have no idea what the plan is, and it's because it's so all over the place at the moment. I'm just hoping that the Batman with Robert Pattinson is like it's standalone. It's not involved in the other universes because they're the best ones, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I hope this Batman, like the Batman, kicks off really popular. Everyone loves it. It's a good film, and then they can start like another series of another trilogy of Batman because Robert Pattinson's still young. I'm sure he's going to be up for doing more Batmans if this is successful. And we might get some really good stories.
Yeah, and they got heaps of stuff. So they could start off with the Riddler, and then they could do something like a Court of Owls second like film, and then they could save the Joker for the end. Or something
I don't
like
even
that.
care if we never see the Joker. We've had that many Jokers.
Yeah.
Surely some other villains. Give us a proper Bane. Give us a proper Mr. Freeze, not Arnie saying the whole time.
Chill out.
Batman's so deep and rich. Like, there's a million things they could draw on.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm hoping that this really kicks off. I'm really hoping it does, and I think it will. From what I've seen so far, and so what of the reactions I've seen of people, they're super keen. Like they're super keen to see this film. And yeah, it's with Matt Reeves as well, so it's gonna be really good. I'm so happy that it's actually turned out well. Remember when we first saw that first image of him with the red, tinge to it?
Yeah, that was just a shit photo, I reckon. That was just a shit photo.
It was a weird angle, but now we watched it actually in motion and it looks really cool.
His Batmobile looks tough.
It looks like it's like a American muscle car, and I was like, oh, that looks sick.
Yeah. The back end's hectic though.
But yeah, I mean, if you think about the past Batman films, obviously the oldest ones, which were okay. The first two films are the best ones. And then
you're talking about like the Tim Burton ones and stuff.
Yeah. And then you've got the Batman, like Christopher Nolan's trilogy, which is a really, really, really good trilogy. And that's more like
but it's not really Batman. It's like
it's like it's more grounded and more like this is what Batman would be in a modern day time, not so much like he can disappear in a blink of an eye, which he does in that, but it's more like using his gadgets and stuff, and of course he does that in the old films as well, and maybe in his newer one. But then you've got Ben Affleck's Batman, who's the acrobatic kind of one, the real comic kind of version of him. But I was saying to Pat that Ben Affleck's probably the most comic accurate one we've had yet, but I think Robert Pattinson might take it. Yeah, no, I'm really keen to see what happens, and so obviously this whole episode's been basically about Batman because I think he's coming back. I think this DC era of maybe movies, video games have always been a little bit better, I think, Oh yeah, the Arkham series is amazing. Yeah, and then obviously with this movie coming out, I'm just glad it's not too convoluted with other superheroes and stuff because everything's oversaturated these days with setting up for next films. Like every Marvel movie that comes out this year, or every Marvel movie that's come out in the last few years, other than the Avengers films, is like, they just put little hints and little, breadcrumbs for something else, a bigger bad villain, and then they just like ignore the current villain in that film, and it just doesn't make it any better. So I'm just really hoping that they just really focus in on, it's not so much Marvel now because I don't really care too much about Marvel anymore because, the main story of Thanos is done and your favorite heroes from the original group are gone pretty much. But Batman, if that can be just a good standalone film and maybe at the end tease something else, so have like a massive battle and not have, someone escape to become the villain in the next movie, but just have something like set up at the end, sort of like how Venom had Carnage at the end, or not the Carnage, but the character or the person that turns into Carnage. Yeah, it's definitely, we've got some good stuff on the horizon for DC, and I think, Marvel's still going to be coming out with wicked movies, but I'm keen to switch gears a bit. Yeah, and the horizon looks good. That's all we can say, and obviously, Gotham Knights, could be a winner. Could be a flop. We don't know. At this stage, our radar's a little bit off, but that's okay. But yeah, I was gonna say, what else have you been doing recently? Have you any games you've been playing, or any TV shows, movies you've been watching?
I watched Project Power. Average, real average.
Yep. And you're saying that Tenet was really good. Obviously, with no spoilers, please, because I've not seen it.
Oh yeah, I went. Me and my mates went to an advanced screening, so I don't even think it's out yet. Still, a date of recording this. It's what is the date? It's the 23rd today, and I saw it a couple of days ago. Yeah, Tenet's amazing. Once you see it, we'll definitely have a chat about it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to think what, talking about the whole Batman stuff, this is pretty current. I've just literally purchased off Steam the Batman Arkham trilogy, so I'm going to start playing that again. That'll be pretty fun. Get me hyped up for the next year of Batmans that we have.
Yeah, I might play the original again, because I played City and Night to death. But yeah.
Yep.
Might do Asylum.
Well, number one's, Arkham Asylum is pretty basic. I mean, there's still a bit of like exploration and stuff like that, not compared to the other two games, but the world building's actually really awesome, obviously. Really keen to see what happens next. And we've got, the next gen's not too far away as well. Depending on how many games get pushed back, it's getting a bit disappointing at the moment. I know Pap was saying they at this stage won't delay the whole next gen release till next year, because at this stage there'll be no games to play.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's just everything's getting pushed back and delayed. That's why I'm happy to have found this new Batman series, because it's something that's already out and finished, and I can get through it at my own pace. Don't have to wait for anything.
Yeah, that's it. I'm just trying to think what else I've been watching. I've been watching a lot more anime as well. Need to get back into the TV shows, the live action stuff, because my eyes are getting sore from reading so much subtitles.
Just watch it in English.
Not everything's in English yet, man. All right, with everything that's going on around the world, people can't work from home and do the voice acting, so all the dubs have been delayed a bit. And saying that, obviously, you need to finish bloody My Hero Academia season 4, so we can talk about that.
Yeah, I do. I've just been so behind with like watching stuff. I've just been going hectic at uni with reading comics and like going through the podcast each week. I've just got no time. Yeah,
true. It is hard to catch up these days, and that's one thing I haven't done. I need to finish off Ghost of Tsushima because I've fallen behind.
Oh yeah, I did hammer that for a while. That took over my life. Yeah, I was almost Japanese by the end of it.
Yeah, no, I'm actually really keen. We should definitely do. We should watch The Last Samurai, even though it's a Western-styled samurai movie with Tom Cruise in it. I think that's a really cool film that we could probably watch, and also talk about when I finish Ghost of Tsushima. We could have a little chat about the culture and the samurai way, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, dude, for sure.
But yeah, I think that wraps up today's episode, I reckon.
Yeah. Follow us on all our socials, Twitter, and we've got YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I'm pretty sure we're on Amazon now, I believe.
Oh, yeah. The Audible it's taken a while. The submission, it takes a while to go through for some reason. Every time I check it, it's still not in yet. So hopefully that'll be up shortly. And obviously we're also on Google Podcasts as well. So there's plenty of places to listen to us too. And if you can give us a subscribe and a follow, or subscribe on Facebook and a follow on Twitter, would be much appreciated. Then we can get some ideas and what people want to listen to, which way direction they want us to go and topics they want us to cover. So just try and build up a bit of a following would be really nice. But in saying that, thanks for listening today, and
peace out.